everybody. My name is Cindy Knowles. I feel really honored to be able to speak to you today. I'm a scientist. I have my master's in herbal science, and as Glenn mentioned, I have an NGO called Community Safety Champions, and we do skills development, and I do health talks and entrepreneurial talks because we upskill people. And so that they can start their own business across various fields. But health is my main focus. And so today, because we are in that festive season, the season where everybody loves to eat and so forth, we forget about our health. And health is wealth, as we know. So it's extremely important to just be cognizant of these little things. Hippocrates says, let food be your medicine and medicine be your food. So what you eat is extremely important because you become what you eat. So just a word of caution of the festive season, just, think about what you eat, and if you do overindulge, just try to have a cheat day or a good day, or once January 1st comes around, then go and try and do better, because health is wealth, and if you're healthy, you can achieve so many things. You can become inconquerable, actually, if you have your health. Okay, so there are two types of diabetes. You get diabetes 1 and you get diabetes 2. Diabetes 1, people are normally born with, or it's induced by a traumatic experience or, a medical mishap or something like that. And type 2 is basically sort of what they call a lifestyle-induced disease. So this is normally brought on by what you eat and the habits that you have. So lots of people over time have this hereditary gene in their bloodline, but you won't necessarily get it unless it's triggered, and it's triggered by your lifestyle. So once again, lifestyle is really important in how your longevity, your quality of life, and so forth. So we do need to think about what we eat and what we consume. Okay, so food plays an extremely important role, and one of the main factors that causes diabetes is carbohydrates. Now, most people think carbohydrates is just your potatoes and whatever, but actually, carbohydrates is starch, starch-rich foods. But mainly, it comes from wheat. And as you know, wheat is in almost everything you consume, your breads, your cereals, your pastas, your everything. So wheat and gluten are the main carbohydrates that actually induce diabetes. So we need to try to get back to the 8 laws of health, which is, we call it New Start. So it's nutrition, it's exercise, it's rest, it's fresh air, it's sunlight, it's temperance, it's trusting in God, and it's that type of thing. Because when we have a healthy lifestyle and we have these healthy habits, we can combat diseases much better, we have a better quality of life, and the list goes on, and we are not as susceptible to these different ailments that come along due to lifestyle habits or whatever our choices may be. So how does diabetes actually start? It starts off with when we're consuming our carbohydrates, whether it's cereal in the morning or bread or whatever the case may be. It then breaks down in the body, in the gastrointestinal tract, into these little molecules. And then it breaks, and those molecules are called glucose. The glucose then goes into your bloodstream, and then it goes to the liver through the vein. Now the liver then sends it to the rest of the body, because the glucose is used to produce energy for all the different cycles that you need in your body. So how this happens is you've now eaten your glucose, or at least your carbohydrates, which then turns into glucose. And there are 3 different places that it is stored. So it is stored in your liver, it is stored in your fat cells, and it is stored in your muscles. When it is stored in your muscle, it is then known as a quick release. So this is like a 20-minute time frame of energy that is just stored there. So for example, if you wake up in the morning, before you go and eat, you decide you want to go and exercise. Say it's 5 o'clock in the morning, but you haven't eaten, so where do you get that energy to do the exercise? You get it from that stored glucose. And there's two ways that the glucose is released. Either through hydration, through water, or it is released through an activity like walking or exercising. And that stored glucose is also a diabetic's best friend, because sometimes you find yourself in situations where you don't have your insulin, you're running low and so forth. Your body will then take it from those stored resources in your muscle tissue. Okay, so then when you're eating your carbohydrates, right? So now carbohydrates is very high on the index scale. So it gives a very big spike in glucose, a very big, so to say, sugar spike, right? So now the brain tells the body, okay, there's a lot of sugar happening, there's a lot of glucose happening in the body. So it tells the pancreas to release insulin. Now the glucose, when it goes to the cells, it is needed to produce energy in the cell. Now your cells is basically where everything starts. Every function, every process, everything is done in the cell itself. So your cell, when your cell is working properly, all your other functions can then work properly, because it's a knock-off effect, because everything starts at the cellular level. So now if your cellular levels are working optimally, naturally you'll be a healthier person. So what do your cells need to work optimally? It needs the glucose, number one. It then also needs water and nutrients and minerals, because your body is 80% water. And the minerals and the nutrients you need to be to your food. And those are the building blocks for cellular process to take place. Now, when the glucose goes to the cell, it needs insulin to unlock it in the cell. Otherwise, it cannot work. So your brain tells your pancreas to produce insulin. But now, because there's a big spike in the glucose, because you're eating a high glucose intense diet through your carbohydrates, it's a big spike in insulin. So it produces a lot of insulin. Now your body is overflowing with insulin, and your body is made to regulate itself. So once that insulin rush is happening in your body, your brain then tells the pancreas to make something to lower it. So then it makes glucagon. Glucagon will then lower it, but because it was such a big spike, it lowers it to a low spike, because it has to be the same amount in order to lower it. Now, diabetics can actually go into what they call hypoglycemia. And this is like where the numbers are 2 and 1. You can go into a coma, a stroke, that type of thing, if the numbers are too low. Now your body tells, your brain tells your pancreas to make insulin again to rise the levels. So this keeps on going on. It's like a yo-yo effect. This high insulin and then a high, or at least a very low glucagon, and then back up again. And this yo-yo effect is what ultimately starts insulin resistance. And insulin resistance is the start of diabetics, or at least it's the pre-diabetic phase. And obviously, if you continue on your diet and your way of life that you are doing, automatically you will become a diabetic once you are insulin resistant. But it is not the end of the world, because it can be reversed. Okay? So how do you reverse this? You need to drop all your carbohydrates. You need to eat fiber, protein, and fats. You need to go to bed early, between 10 and 3 a.m. especially, because those times are when your body releases certain hormones. And these hormones regulate your circadian rhythms and different functions in the body, like your lymphatic drainage system. It produces the active ingredient that actually drains all the toxins out of your body, which is extremely important because if toxins remain in your body, that also causes lots of diseases and so forth. So sleep is very important. And then you need to eat your biggest meal needs to be in the morning. Because if you think of how your day is, you need energy, a boost of energy to start your day. And as your day goes on, your energy starts waning so that by the time evening comes, you get sleepy and you go sleep. So that is how your meals need to be as well. Your biggest meal must be your breakfast, and then smaller lunch. Supper should be your smallest meal. But we're also used to having it the other way around, and we need to try to change if we want longevity and a healthy lifestyle. We need to exercise every day. I know it's a problem for me as well, but exercise is very important, and it doesn't need to be much. What you need to do is you need to do high intense reps. So you need to have like a 30-second dash, like from here to there, and then you rest for 60 seconds. Then another 30-second dash, and you rest for 60 seconds. So you need to do like three of those reps after each other at a time. Maybe 3 times a day, or depending on how much you can handle, and then you increase it as the day goes by. Because the reason why this happens is because your body needs to get to a state where it is so exhausted that you're heaving, when you're so out of breath. When you're out of breath, that is the carbon dioxide releasing all the toxins in your body that you didn't release the night before during your 10 p.m. and 3 a.m. So your body's always trying to help itself release all the bad things so that you can live a good life. So if we play by those rules, then we can achieve a wonderful life. And then we need to drink at least 8 glasses of water. But people think just drinking water is enough. It is not. You need to drink water with Himalayan salt, not table salt. Okay? This is very important because remember earlier I spoke about the cellular process. So your cellular process needs nutrients and minerals and water along with the glucose to actually function. So the water that you're drinking and the nutrients need to come in so that your cellular process can work properly. So now Himalayan salt or Celtic salt, but I tell people Himalayan salt because Celtic salt is very expensive. Celtic salt has 84 of the 84 minerals that our body needs, that our cellular processes need. And Himalayan salt has 73 of those minerals. Table salt only has 2. And together, they are toxic for your body. That is why it does cause high blood pressure. So how your cell works is, this is your cell, and normally the water and the nutrients flow in and out. That is called gaseous exchange and so forth. But now because we don't eat properly, we don't live properly, we are technically in a state of dehydration through our lifestyle choices, because we're on the go all the time, things need to happen. We're drinking water, but we're not drinking the salt with the water. So you think you drink a lot of water, say you drink a liter of water and you're going to the toilet all the time. That water should be staying in your body for the cellular process to happen. So now how do you retain that water so that you can actually use it along with the nutrients? The Himalayan salt has all the nutrients that helps the cell retain the water. So how it works is, this is the cell. And when we are dehydrated, it forms like a little layer around the cell, like a little bubble, to protect the water and the nutrients that's in the cell, to keep it there. Otherwise it will just go out and then it can't work properly because it's not getting enough food to make the thing work properly. It's like a car. If you're going to put water in the car's going to stand still. But if you put the right thing in, which is petrol, it's going to ride. So your cell needs the right things to work properly. So So now it's got this turgid layer around. The only thing that can unlock this turgid layer is the magnesium in the Himalayan or Celtic salt, because it's got all the minerals and nutrients, or at least majority of the minerals and nutrients that cell needs to work. So now the Himalayan salt has the magnesium. The magnesium unlocks the cell. So now the water can come in and all the minerals can come in. The same with the glucose. The glucose comes, but it needs the insulin, which is the key to unlock the glucose for the energy transpiration to happen in the cell. So those are the two keys, the insulin and the magnesium, to unlock your cellular process. So that is why it is important to drink Himalayan salt or Celtic salt with your water, so that your cells are being fed properly and can work properly, and you will see you will not go to the toilet, because now your body is retaining and using the water as it's supposed to. You will also find you become healthier. Your recovery time from injuries and so forth will be much quicker. I've been drinking Himalayan salt. My aunt and I have been drinking Himalayan salt in water for the past 2 years. I have not been sick. If I did get sick, it was like for a day and then I was finished. I used to have a back injury and you just move wrong and then you're out for a week. Now it doesn't bother me. I can move whichever way I want to. So why is that happening? Because at the cellular level, all your processes are working properly. It's being fed what it needs. And so now, generally, your health will also be better. So these things are very important. It's small things that you have to do and change, but your lifestyle will be so improved if you just try and change these little things. Okay, so that's what you need. So you need to cut out wheat, because I'll explain now. Wheat and sugar. Wheat, W. Wheat, not wheat, wheat. You need to cut out dairy and drugs. Okay, so fiber. What is fiber? Fiber you get from your green leafy vegetables and so forth. Fiber is very important because it coats your stomach lining and it helps your body absorb the nutrients easier, and it sort of increases the potency of the nutrients. And the fiber will also help the glucose be absorbed slower, so then there's not that high peak, and then you won't get insulin resistance as quickly. You also need to have protein, and you can get your protein from your meat and your legumes and so forth, depending on if you're a vegetarian or not. Your body is, the building blocks of your body is made up of proteins and water. So those are the two main factors that you really need in your body. So that is important. And then fat. This is not animal fat or fat like, that we think fat is. This is the good fats. So good fats are things that have benefits to you, so to say. So your good fats are your avocados, your nuts, your seed oils, your not canola, your coconut, that's the word, coconut oils and so forth. Those are the healthy oils and fats that you need to be consuming in your diet. Okay, so now carbohydrates. Lots of people always think carbohydrates is your potatoes, but carbohydrates is actually your wheat products, as I mentioned before, and that is what has the high glycemic index. So because wheat is in all these products, it's in almost everything. We need wheat to make almost everything that we eat, and we need to try to either swap it with ancient grains like canola or spelt or stuff like that, Or you can use sourdough bread, which is much more healthy, and the fermentation process also helps with your gut health. And gut health is extremely important because your happy hormone is made in your gut. Your immune system comes from your gut health and so forth. So it has a big impact on your life as well. So what you feed your gut is very important. Potatoes is like at the end of the carbohydrate scale because yes, it's a carbohydrate, but it has a slow release of glucose. So it doesn't have that high peak. So it's okay, but it would be better if you eat less or if you eat sweet potato instead of potato. You know, so it's not saying stop, and I'm a big potato lover, but it is about how you manage what you eat. So if you were to cut out your wheat completely, for example, you can have as much potato as you want because it's a slow release index. So that is like fine. Now what happened was, and this is why wheat is not good for you. It is because in the 1950s, they hybridized wheat because the population was booming, you know, the baby boomers and all of that. So now they needed to make enough food for everybody. So they hybridized the wheat. This is GMO, genetically modified. So they tweaked the DNA of the wheat so that it could grow amply, so to say. And when they tweaked it, they didn't, normally when you are changing things, you need to do certain tests and so forth. And they needed this to get to the market, so they didn't do like the proper clinical trial tests of what the effects are, long term and so forth. So only in later years did they start finding out what the actual effect was. So what happened was, when they hybridized the wheat, it produced this starch called amylopectin A. And amylopectin A is the thing in wheat that causes that high insulin surge, or sorry, high glucose surge, which will cause you to need a high insulin surge to bring it down. So amylopectin A also causes the carbohydrates to sit around the belly. It's difficult to get rid of as fat. So it's like, I know men especially, they have this beer belly. It's actually not a beer belly. It's from the wheat that we are consuming. Women, you think you're insulin resistant or whatever. Maybe you are, but a lot of it is the wheat that you are consuming that is causing the stubborn fat to not want to go, you know, that type of thing. So amylopectin A is the problem in the wheat. It's not the wheat itself. That is why we need to try and switch the type of wheat that we use, because amylopectin A is the problem, because that is what causes the high spikes in our blood sugar levels. And it causes us also, lately you see people are becoming wheat and gluten intolerant. That is because of the amylopectin A. They also hybridize rice, so that is why the gluten, people are becoming gluten intolerant to rice and so forth, or anything with gluten in, because of amylopectin A. So that is the actual problem. So knowledge is power. We need to use this knowledge to the best of our abilities to be as healthy as we possibly can. And it doesn't have to be a drastic change in your life choices. It's just trying to switch to make healthier choices so that we can have a better quality of life. And the reason why we need to cut out dairy, for example, dairy causes a lot of mucus. And the reason is because milk was made for calves, not for humans. Because calves have renin, and renin is what actually breaks down the milk in the calves. We don't have renin, so we cannot break down the milk the way we are supposed to. Cows also have 4 stomachs, so it goes through a lot of processes in order to break down what they consume and the milk that they consume. We only have 1 stomach. So milk technically was not made for our bodies. Our bodies have adapted, but it was not made for our bodies. If you look at studies and you look at who has the highest osteoporosis, it is those Scandinavian countries that have a high dairy diet. They have the highest osteoporosis, and you think, how is that possible when they are consuming all the calcium that they need? But our bodies don't need calcium in that form. Our bodies actually need vitamin A and beta carotene and sunlight, vitamin D, and convert that into the type of calcium that our bones need. And so when we don't get the proper calcium, or we are getting calcium as is through the tablets that we, the vitamin tablets that we take, or the milk, then our bodies, our bones start leaching the calcium from other places because it needs to still function properly. And so then we have like all these brittle bones and we break easily and so forth. Compared to if you stuck to things that have vitamin A and carotene, like carrots and so forth, you can actually have really strong teeth and bones. So it is all about knowing what does what in your body, and you feed it that. And you'll be a healthier, much better person. And drugs, this is obviously normal drugs, narcotics is not good. But what I refer to when I say drugs, it is the medication. We are so used to just taking a pill for everything. But if we were healthy, we wouldn't need to take a pill because we wouldn't be sick, technically. So some of those drugs actually cause and induce certain problems, and they affect the liver and the pancreas the most, or mostly. And that is where our insulin actually is being made and stored. And so if the pancreas and the liver is not working properly, it's going to cause problems, and it's going to cause you to have diabetes and so forth. So what we consume is extremely important. So I hope that I didn't scare you, but I do hope that this was educational and helpful, and that okay, I am supposed to ask a question. I hope that everybody was listening so that you'll be able to answer the question. I know it was very high level, but I tried to explain this as best as I could so that you now completely understand in layman's terms what diabetes is all about. But does anyone remember one of the places where the glucose is stored?
Red cells.
The liver and the muscles. Who said muscles? Muscles, yeah. So it's stored in your muscles. Okay, thank you everybody.
Cindy, thank you so much.